Hello, RAP students. I'm Dr. Smith. I'm here again to talk about measurement and data. Today we're going to talk about capacity as it relates to measurement. Capacity is the amount a container can hold, and that is very important. For example, one thing that I know about very well is when you're working with science and you're doing experiments, you have to be able to measure things according to what they can hold. So if you need to have a liquid poured with another liquid, you need to know how much of each. So you have to use a container that will allow you to pour the liquids together and that will hold the amount that you need. Also, there are other ways to use capacity. It's kind of the same, but just a little different in the kitchen. When you're cooking, you have to know how much of something to use. You have to have the right bowl, the right pan, the right pot. You have to know the capacity that those containers will hold. So we're going to talk about that. So some of the units that you can use when talking about capacity, you have the gallon, the quart, the pint. This is not an exact pint, but it's pretty much close to a pint. You also have the ounce. This is 2 ounces. So if you divide this in half, you would have 1 ounce. So when you are thinking about the capacity of some liquid or solid, whatever you're thinking about, you need to be able to have an idea of what each unit represents. So if you wanted to measure medicine, would you use a gallon to measure medicine? Would you use a quart? Would you use a pint? Or would you use fluid ounces? I'm going to go with ounces. I don't think anybody needs this much medicine. Now, if you are going to measure something like milk, this one might be a little tricky. Would you use a gallon, a quart, a pint, or an ounce? Now, when you go to the store, you can actually get milk in the gallon size. That's about the maximum. So you can do that. A quart, you can get some milk in a quart too. So you can do that. You can even get it as a pint if you like. So kind of milk is a in between. You can get it in all of those ways. No more than a gallon though. No more than a gallon at a time, I'm guessing. I don't know who would need that much. But you can also do ounces if you have a small container of milk. Now, if you were getting a bag of potting soil, what might you use? I guess it depends on how much potting soil you need. If you have 1 plant, you might just want to get a pint. I don't know how long that'll last you. I'm not really a person who does a lot of planting. My mom does that, so I would have to let her answer that. But you can go to the gallon. If you are a person who really likes to plant and likes to grow things, you can actually go to the gallons. So the whole point is for you to understand the relationship between the sizes. So if somebody asks you, how much medicine do you need? Are you going to say a gallon? Or are you going to say a quart? No, you're going to say ounces, right? Actually, 2 ounces is a lot of medicine depending on what it is. So just so you'll have an idea of how that goes. Now, we're going to use these things and we're going to calculate from one unit to another. So this is how we're going to do it. We know that we're going to say that 1 gallon equals, I think it's 4 quarts. I don't do a lot of quarts, so I have to look at that. And 4 quarts equal 128 fluid ounces.
We may want to do that again.
So we're going to change units. We know that 1 gallon equals 4 quarts, and 4 quarts equal 128 fluid ounces. So if we have 8 gallons, I'm going to put the abbreviation for gallons. We want to find out how many fluid, this is a shortcut for fluid, ounces, that's the abbreviation for ounces, we would have. So if you have 1 gallon and it equals 128 gallons, we're going to take that 128 fluid ounces and times it by 8. So I hope you know your math facts. 8 times 8. 8 times 8 is 64. Shut your mouth and say no more. Some people like to say that. So if we know it's 64, we're going to put the 4 here, carry the 6 up top. 2 times 8 is 16. 16, I'm going to write it to the side so you can see it. 16 plus 6 is 6 plus 6 is 12. Add 1 is 22. So we're going to put 22. There's a 2. We're going to put this 2 up here. Now, start with the big numbers. 1 times 8 is 8. And we're going to add 2, which is 10. So we have 1,024. So the number of fluid ounces is 1,024. And that's how you change units. Now, let's talk metric system, which is the system that people all over the world use. We've talked about the gallon, the quart, the pint, the ounce. But when you talk about the metric system, they like to use liters and milliliters. Just to do metric system, so you'll remember that's all over the world. Now the abbreviation for liter is L, capital L, and for milliliter is lowercase m and capital L usually, but sometimes you'll see it this way. Now, 1 liter equals 1,000 milliliters. I'm going to go ahead and just put it like that. So, if we have 5 liters, how many milliliters do we have? So you would do 5 times 1,000, which will equal 5,000. So our answer is 5,000 milliliters. So now you know how to convert using the metric system. Now we've only talked about containers and how much they can hold, but you can measure capacity also as, they call it volume, because if you have a solid object and you want to know the volume, all of the space within that object, that solid object, you would have to measure the volume. So the best thing that I had, because I don't have any prisms or anything laying around the house, is this little speaker. It is not a container. You can't hold anything in it. It's solid. So you could measure the volume of that. Now, what would be easiest is to measure a cube. So I'm going to try and draw a cube. I think I still remember how to do it. I used to do this all the time in school. It's getting a little tricky now. Okay, that's okay. So let's just stick with all of the sides being the same. So this side here is going to be your width. This is going to be your height. So I'm just going to put it right here. And this is going to be your length, because now we have 3 different dimensions. That means that you can touch it on all sides. It's not flat. Like it's flat, it's something like this. Like there's not a whole lot of side to touch here either. It's a solid object, but there's not a lot of side. This, you can touch it on all sides and hold it really nicely. So how you measure volume is length times width times height. Just like here, let me put that big L. That's length times width times height. So if all the sides are the same, and let's say they're 5, let's go with 5 liters. We could say that the length is 5 liters times the width, that is 5 liters, times the height, that is 5 liters. So we're now going to solve for this. We know that 5, I should have stuck to what I was doing, times 5 is 25. And now we're going to times it times 5. 25 times 5. So we bring the 2 over, and then we do the big numbers. 2 times 5 is 10, plus 2 is 12. So our volume equals 125. Now, let's talk units. Our units are liters. With volume, you're going to use cubes. Now, cubes look like this. You're going to put the unit, and then you're going to add a 3 at the top, because you have 3 different numbers that you added, and that's called cubed, liters cubed, or cubic liters, whichever way that you want to say it. So we now know the volume. That's another way, that's a way that you can measure the volume of solid objects. And now another way to do capacity, this is one of the last ways I'm going to talk about before we get into the fun stuff. Is we measure weight. And we're going to use a scale to measure weight. So we could measure something like this box of crayons. We first turn our scale on. And now we have to choose the units, because grams are a part of the metric system. I'm going to use grams. We haven't talked about grams yet. So I'm going to, now that the scale is on and I've chosen my units, I'm going to sit the box on top of the scale. And the scale reads 128 grams. Not everything can be put directly on a scale, especially if you're in a chemistry lab. There are a lot of chemicals that you need to put into a container. So we are going to do that with, let's use a couple of the crayons out of the box. I'm going to measure these crayons, but I don't want them on the scale directly. So the first thing I need to do is put the container onto the scale that I'm going to put the crayons in. Now, the scale is now weighing the container. We don't want that weight included. So there's a button that says tare. I'm going to push it, and now the reading is 0. It's not going to measure the weight of the container. It's only going to measure the crayons. So I'll put the crayons in. 14 grams is what it measures. So 3 crayons measure 14 grams. So now that you know how to weigh the mass of an object using a scale, we're going to calculate using grams and kilograms, which is the metric unit for weight or mass. So 1 kilogram equals 1,000 grams. So if we have an object that equals 16 kilograms, how many grams? I'm going to put G for short because that's how you would abbreviate grams. How many grams would you have? Because 1 kilogram is equal to 1,000 grams, we're going to take 16 and we're going to times it by 1,000. Now, I don't know if you know how to use the zeros. I'm going to show you the trick. We count the zeros. 1, 2, 3. Let's go ahead and put the zeros up there. Now, the non-zero numbers we're going to multiply. 16 times 1 is 16. So you will have 16,000 grams. That is how you calculate kilograms to grams. So now that we have an idea how to measure capacity and how to change units, we're going to pick a fun way that most people like to talk about units and converting them. We're going to do a recipe. So when you're working out, when it's hot out, it's always good to have a nice hydrating drink. So we're going to make a hydrating fruit drink. I'm going to write up the recipe. You're going to have 4 cups of coconut water, 1 cup of tart cherry juice, and 1/2 cup of A little bit tricky word. I'm not used to writing it. Pomegranate. Hope I got it right. I think I did. Juice. And 6 to 8, I think it's tablespoons of, I like to use honey rather than sugar or some other type of sweetener, and 1/4 teaspoon of pink. I'm writing it capital because it's a specific type of salt. Himalayan. I want you to remember that it's a different type of salt. All right. So we're going to mix all of this together. Here's the only thing. I only want half of the recipe. So how are we going to change it? So on the side, we're going to half it. Okay? So instead of 4 cups, what's half of 4 cups? 2 cups. What's half of 1 cup? 1/2 cup. What's half of half a cup? Okay, that one, for some people that don't like fractions, maybe that's not an exciting thing to figure out. So let's just do a pie. I like to give a visual. So this is a half and this is a half. But you only want half of this half. So let's divide it in half. This is the half that you want, right here. So why don't we make it even, and let's half the other half too. So how many parts do we have now? So we just evened out the side to match this side. Now there are 4 parts, and you only want 1 part. So that's the same as saying 1/4. So you want 1/4 cup. Now, the sweet part, I don't like as much sweet, so I would go closer to the 6. So what's half of 6? It's 3 tablespoons. Actually, this would be the abbreviation for tablespoon. And now we have to do a 1/4 teaspoon, and we have to divide that even farther. So let's see. You have that 1/4, but you only want half of 1/4. So, well, I should do that differently. Let's do it this way instead. Let's do a square. So we have 4 parts. And this is the part that we were going to originally use, but you only want half of it. So let's shade the part that we want. Now let's make all of them look the same. How many parts we got now? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So you only want 1 of the 8 parts. So that's 1/8. And it's a teaspoon. The abbreviation for teaspoon is a small t and S&P. All right, so we got what we need now. So now we get to do the fun part. We're going to actually make this drink. We'll start with the first ingredient, which was coconut water. We want 2 cups. Now I have 1 cup, but if I didn't, because sometimes that happens, I do have half a cup, and I do have 2/3 cup. The easiest would be half a cup, but we could use them all. As long as it added up to 1 cup each, we knew how to do that, we can use them all. I'm going to use a half cup. So maybe I should do it over this, just in case we have some spill. No, yeah, do it. So here's our first half cup. Let's see if we can do this without spilling it. Oh, that was great. That's a half cup. That's 1 cup. One and a half cups. And 2 cups. That was pretty good. All right, our next ingredient is the cherry juice. And we want a half cup of cherry juice. But I'm going to use the 4th cup because we can't make it too easy. So if we use the 4th cup, how many of these will we have to use? We'll have to do it twice. So, wrong thing. Here we go. That's 1/4. Oop. And that's a half. Now be careful with cherry juice because it can stain. That's why we wear an apron. Now, next is the pomegranate. We want a 4th cup. We'll just stick with the 4th cup for that. We're not going to be too fancy. Missed a little bit. Let's just pour a little bit in there. Okay. Now we have to add 3 tablespoons. I have my tablespoon of honey. This is always tricky because it's so sticky. And actually sometimes I like to skip some of the sweet. Here's one. It's always interesting putting honey in stuff because it's so hard to get out. Two. Last one. Let's see. Let me use this to get it out. Yep, honey's sticky. Now the only thing left to add is our 1/4 cup. Our 1/8 teaspoon. I only have a 1/4. So we just need to use half of this for the salt. I've already gotten some salt out. And it's important to put a little salt in it because our body needs some salt. Remember that this drink is not just for taste. It's giving you things that your body needs to be hydrated after you've been exercising or sweating a lot from exercising. So, and I like, because our bodies are made mostly of water, I like to add water to a lot of things, especially when it's really hot out. Let's add a little water. So just remember, it's not about the taste. It'll be okay, but it's not going to be like Kool-Aid. But this is also because it's good for your body. And all I'm going to do is close it up and shake. Swirl and shake. Now the only problem here is the honey, because honey is really sticky. It's harder to get it to melt when you're not using heat. But hopefully we can get some of the honey to really get evenly distributed or evenly mixed throughout this drink. And that's it. So, thank you for being with me to talk about capacity and how we can use capacity when doing lots of things in our life. It's been a pleasure working with you. Remember to exercise your mind as well as your body.